So sorry you had to go through that, and
Thank you.
you turned mourning into mission. That's what we call it here.
People want to be supported by their manager and their teammates during hard times. So what does it mean to give a basic equipping to those people? There's this accountant that comes up to me halfway through the day, and he sticks out his hand and he says, I just want to thank you for not making this boring and stupid. It's worth investing in. I mean, there are so many ways.
I think, let's get into that. Hello, my name is Keegan McGuire. I am the co-founder of Bereave. I am here with the one and only Liesel. And if you don't know Liesel, where you been? If I can guarantee after this conversation, you will love her just as much as everyone else. Liesel, thank you for coming on today.
So glad to be with you, Keegan.
Why are we doing this? Liesel started her company. I started my company, both in an effort to help people. We will get into kind of why we started what we started. I promise it's a good story. We have plenty to cover. Liesel, I would first like to, I think, set the scene with kind of your story, what happened, and what led you into where you are today.
Well, thank you for that invitation. I do bring my own story to this work, as probably anyone who tunes in to watch a conversation with an organization like Bereave. It's my intersection with what I call disruptive life events. And so a really profound disruptive life event happened for me now 15 years ago. I was starting an MBA program down at the Kelly School. I had 2 small children at home. I said yes to the Kelly School. I found out a week later that I was unexpectedly pregnant with our third, a little girl named Mercy Joan, but I am a confident multitasker. And I thought, that's okay. We can balance things. We'll figure things out. But Luke, my husband, and I found out at our 20-week scan that all was not well with Mercy Joan. She had a neural tube defect condition called an encephalocele. And there's a wide range of outcomes with that. So in the midst of going to accounting class and having group projects, we were also driving up to Indianapolis and meeting with specialists. And there's a wide range of outcomes with the condition that Mercy had. It was anywhere from this is reparable with surgery and there might be mild impairment, all the way to this will be terminal. And they said, we really won't be able to tell until we get an outside the womb MRI. So we were waiting, we were hoping, we were praying, but Mercy was born on February 15th, and she died just 8 days later on February 22nd. And for anyone listening who has buried a child, it's a loss that radiates out in all directions. It's still something that impacts our story as a family. It also intersected with my field of study, because there I was, someone who oftentimes experiences myself as someone with a really high bandwidth and capacity. And I knew that I wasn't just okay or ready to bounce back. I needed support. And there were many people in my network that knew how to give it well. It's part of why I can do this work today. I was well supported much of the time. And yet I also looked around and I was like, some people just are so profoundly uncomfortable. They have no idea what to do. They have no idea what to say. They're just fumbling around. And I knew that actually my situation of being so well supported was rare. And it had me thinking about how we equip managers and leaders, because I was in this expensive and intensive 2-year program. And I realized it was really a gap in the learning experience. We weren't talking about how we equip workplaces or leaders to encounter disruptive life events. So that was the seed, what a couple of years later became the work of Handle with Care Consulting, where we really teach human-centric skills like empathy as just that, not personality traits, but really also skill sets that affect your people and your bottom line.
You're speaking our language. It's it's a very close alignment to what we're doing, and to obviously touch on your stories. so sorry you had to go through that, and
Thank you.
you turned mourning into mission. That's what we
Mm.
call it here. And you're doing great work, and hopefully we can use this time to show your expertise and to kind of show some people what empathy is all about and how disruptive life events can be.
Well, and it's fascinating how things converge because when I was first kind of pulling at the edges of the
Mhm.
viability of what I did, it was a little bit of a road not traveled because I remember for probably 6 months being like, this could also be like a tech-based platform. Is that what I want to launch, or do I want to be doing consulting and being in the room with people? So, Bereave is like the Robert Frost like road not traveled. What you're doing is great.
Wow, and what a transition that is.
Mm.
That is really great, and I will say, not that you couldn't have done the tech platform, but the world is in a better place that you chose the route you did. Speaking
And
from,
the world doesn't have to have a binary choice. You guys did the platform.
we're here. All right.
Cheers to
Yeah.
it.
Thank you so much. So that Liesel, that's amazing, heartfelt, touching story that um, speaks to a lot of people. And if it
Mhm.
doesn't speak to you, I'm sure it still hits. So a little bit about myself and how we got into Bereave
Yeah.
is my best friend growing up. Played baseball with him literally for years. His both his parents passed away. His mom passed away of an aneurysm suddenly. His dad not too long after that. Um, and this was when we were in college. So I was there with him the whole, for both losses at the
Mhm.
hospitals, afterwards, trying, seeing a whole family trying to scramble and make sense of the confusion and chaos that they're going through. Um, Experienced it in that way, which really stuck with me. And then years later, still best friend, and we have another friend who is the third co-founder. The first that I mentioned is Elijah Linder.
Mhm.
The third co-founder is Matt Tyner, who unfortunately lost his mother too early, and then Elijah and Matt, having experienced it, realized
Mhm.
that there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way for all of the after loss process, and the process now is antiquated. Grief is misunderstood, so we set out to fix that. And in our everyday conversations, in working towards these tech driven solutions, we found, similar to what you were saying
Mhm.
earlier, about the lack of training, the lack of understanding, the lack of policy, just so much in the workplace that's wrong, that is
Mhm.
impacting the majority of people. And through these conversations, we've ran into you. Liesel's a great friend of Bereave. Really started pointing us in the right direction, and have found, again, a lot of gaps that we are solving with technology, with the right resources available at the right time for both people in the workplace and for grieving employees and their family.
It is always a gift when people invite you into their origin story of why
Yeah,
it matters. And
truly.
I hear that. I hear the genuine place it comes from. And it's fascinating because I know in some ways that this is, for both of us, it feels like an emergent offering that they were like, wow, we're doing leadership training and disc assessment, but helping people through loss. And when I talk about disruptive life events, it's
Right.
not just
Correct.
putting
Good
someone in the
clarification.
ground. It's a relationship transition.
Mhm.
It's a disruptive diagnosis. It's all of these things. And that is as ancient as time itself. In
Right.
fact, if there's anything that every human being does, if we have the privilege of living long enough, It's we experience some kind of loss. And
Mhm.
the reality is, it's a very 21st century application because in more ancient cultures, there were lots of community rhythms
Yep.
and practices, and you knew all the people you lived by, and they were certainly going to come around you and bring food and give care. And it's actually an anomaly in the history of the world that we're so disconnected and we're working in these corporations and we have this profound isolation of being like, are you kidding me? All you're meeting me with is 3 days off and like a corporate card that you didn't even handwrite and be like, well, this is our way of dealing with it. And so it's getting back to something that has been really important in our past, but putting it into practice with the tools and realities that make our present.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a perfect, let's keep that going actually. So that was kind of how we're seeing it. Do you have
Mm.
any examples, or what do you have to say about the disruptive life events and the effects it can have, in the lack of empathy,
Yeah.
um, what that effect has on, and on employees, and then furthermore what that translates to for the business.
Absolutely. And then let's remember to circle back a little bit later on beyond just the work that you and I do of some of the aggregate data points from places like
Yes.
Ernst & Young and Harvard Business Review that validate not just with us practitioners in the field are seeing, but the meta level trends. So
Right.
as what I'm seeing in the work that I do, there are a few components of my business, but one is that I will come in and speak at conferences. And I would say that maybe 1 out of every 3 people that comes up to me after I speak at a conference says something like, "If only my previous boss or employer or
Mhm.
company had had training like this, had had an awareness like this, I never would have had to leave." It's what I also saw as I had over 50 guests in the first season of my podcast, Handle with Care, Empathy in the Workplace. I interviewed people who were going through disruptive life events at work, um, a child's death by suicide, a journey with alcoholism. I mean, all
Mhm.
sorts of topics that are the things that exist in whispers instead of at the forefront so we can learn and improve from them. And that was what I also heard again and again. One story comes to mind. There's a woman named Wendy who was in one of the episodes, and she got news that her mother's breast cancer had returned while she was at work. And she was feeling all of the feelings, disoriented, overwhelmed. She said, I went into my boss to tell her this heavy news. And she said the woman didn't even stop typing. She just said, "I don't even know why you're telling me this right now, but I need you to get back to work."
Mm.
Which,
Oh,
yeah, it's awful on a human level. It was also the inflection point for Wendy to be like, "I'm not working here anymore.
what am
Like,
I doing here?
I'm
Right.
leaving and starting my own thing." And I know that that is something that you also hear
Mhm.
oftentimes,
Oh,
from people that interact with bereaved, right?
totally, and it's a lot of if we had a nickel, I wish that my employer had this back when
Right,
I would probably still be there. I'm every time that comes up, the vast majority, it's they're no longer there.
right,
And we ran a poll, and 51% of the people that experienced a loss left within 1 year,
yeah,
which is it's crazy that it's that high. Well, now we'll never get that down to zero, given that people will go through personal situations that, of course, you need to, you know, make sense for you to go
mm,
somewhere else or take time or whatever it is. But we are on a mission, and I think we've already made an impact on that, on bringing that 51% down. I'm sure you have as well, with just the idea of treating this as the serious situation it is, and in showing up
right,
for your employees, and not having, and ideally it being in the policy and not having anyone have to stick their neck out manager wise and
Right.
do things for their employees. So there's so much room for improvement, and we know what happens when it goes wrong, and we can get into solutions later. But every day we hear how, I wish my company had this. I'd still be there. Hopefully, some takeaways today. People will be able to we'll be able to start chipping away from that 51%.
Yes, because I don't think a fear-based posture is ever like a lasting motivator for change. So there
Right.
is something that I tell employers like, this will cost you. These are some of the horror stories. But I mean, we move towards impact. We move towards like goodness and love. And the good stories are so good.
Yes.
And these are fragile, vulnerable moments. And yes, if you mishandle them, you can lose people. But if you show up with even just a baseline adequacy of some meaningful actions, some comfort. I mean, there's a company that we both know about, and there was an employee whose young son died. It was so sad. And they just were all in as a leadership team. And they put together a library with books in his honor. They were adaptive. They were responsive. They did all of these things that really mattered. And might that man one day leave that company? Sure, things shift and they change, but he will always talk about they live their values. That's a place where they do the work. And what I encourage people, these don't have to be high cost or even high touch gestures.
Right.
It doesn't have to be expensive and super time intensive. It's actually not, but it does take intention, and it should not just be an HR thing, which is what I see all too much. I'm like, well, let's let HR deal with that. Whereas what my polls and what polls from companies like Atlassian show again and again is people want to be supported by their manager and their teammates during hard times. So what does it mean to give a basic equipping to those people?
That's right. And we could go right into that. Do you have any other examples of what happens when a company gets this wrong, or what typically goes wrong that is an avoidable situation?
Yes. I frame it in terms of how I often facilitate on these topics, which is through the lens of these empathy avatars. They are some specific types that I develop that give people identification, but also a little bit of psychological distance in how they show up. So there are 9 of them. Let me tell you a common way that people go sideways. There's a fix-it Frank or Francine modality that I talk about, where something hard is happening and the boss, the coworker, doesn't know how to hold space. They are uncomfortable and they just jump into like, well, you should try this, or how about that? Or what if we try this? And that oftentimes leaves people in the hard moment feeling like you're just managing me, like you're not seeing me. Right. And when I work, and that is really common, especially at the executive or the leadership level, because they've been promoted by solving problems and fixing things. It's one of their favorite ways to vibrate and operate at work. And just letting them have a realization that this is a really good tendency, but in these types of moments, you're over deploying it and it's not serving you. So even just equipping them with the pause and the question in moments like that. Do you want me to troubleshoot right now, or do you want me to just listen? It's like it opens up space again in the interaction for the person who's going through something hard to think, okay, I'm not just a problem. The other thing that came to mind, just as we talk about what I'm seeing, and I'm not the only one who is getting the lay of the land on this, but we're having a massive demographic shift in the workplace. Leading edge is happening right now, and it's only going to accelerate over the next 5 to 10 years, which is the baby boomers are retiring. And people oftentimes talk about that in terms of succession planning and knowledge transfer, all important. It is also going to have so many people on the cusp of dealing with disruptive life events at work, because their children are a very large portion of your workforce, and they're going to be fielding calls about their parents who fell at home, or the memory care facility that is dealing with getting them, in as a new patient, all at the same time as fielding calls from their
Right.
kids' elementary school about ear infections and tonsils coming out, and workplaces that do not have space to acknowledge and support people in the midst of that complex reality
Mhm.
are really going to lose people and be tone deaf.
The sandwich generation, am I
Yeah,
right there? Yes,
absolutely.
that's a big
The
thing,
the
and
stressed out generation, right? Whatever you want to call it.
and any of the above. But
Yes.
uh, I do not have any children myself, but can only imagine the stress that comes from
Yeah.
that, and that, that this fits perfectly into your disruptive life events, like where
Right.
we more so focus on loss and everything that comes from that. There are plenty of other um, life events that can disrupt your life and thus your work. So
Well,
that's yep,
and by the time someone dies, they've usually had a series of disruptive life events that have
yep,
led
right,
up to that. I mean,
mhm,
I did a session with a group a couple of months ago, and I had done a similar session a year previous. And there was a man who was on the audio team, and he came up to me and he said, I really want to tell you how much I appreciate this. Last year's, the 2024 session, I came back, and it was my first day back. My sister was dying of brain cancer, and I was all out of time off. And I had to come back and work your event because I had to be here. And he said, as a result of this event, my supervisors, they asked me how I was doing and how they could support me in a way that they hadn't ever done before. And he said, it's been pretty crappy. Like, I actually need more from you. Like, I need you to do
mhm,
more. And I also need you to be aware I have used up all my PTO. We're about to bury my sister, and my dad's getting really sick too. And
mhm,
like, what can you do for me? And oftentimes that moment of the death is a moment of its own impoverishment, because a lot of people have
right,
used up in the eyes of the company, a lot of their goodwill, a lot of their
right,
emotional bandwidth in the process of them getting sick and dying.
right. And we haven't even gotten to the actual loss. That is a very,
Yeah.
very good point. So the we've touched on a few things as to how this can be impactful to people in business. Let's do a little rapid fire as
Yeah.
to the what negative impacts a lack of empathy during disruptive life events has on people and businesses. I'll go with um, the culture disruption. We see that's not only hurting the person that's going through it, but everyone's getting word of that, right? We know that everyone hears about it internally, and who knows about externally with social media. We get notes all the time about how
Right.
bad this X company did. So I think it impacts that person, but also a whole culture of people that notice a lack of empathy that we're all searching for. So that's mine. Do you have one? A negative impact?
Yeah. If companies think about empathy in a widespread way, it is usually end customer facing. And especially as I do work, and all companies have an element of this, but I will work sometimes with call center employees or frontline bankers or people in the healthcare profession, where it's in the best interest of the company. Like, you've got to radically be attuned to the end user's need, anticipate care, serve them, um, realize what they're going through as they're coming in for the foreclosure or to get a loan for a new house. And oftentimes they neglect that your first customer is your internal employee. And if you are expecting them to be responsive and caring and consistently available, and oftentimes these people are the lowest paid people in your organization that have
Right.
the highest burden of that, and they are not encountering any degree of care or concern internally, that is a path to burnout and hypocrisy and word on the street being like, they don't live their values. Like,
Yep.
they might say that that's who they are in the sphere of commerce, but it is not who they are at their core.
That's exactly right. And the values part is so interesting that a company is built off of these, apparently. It's very easy to celebrate them when times are good.
Mm,
You know, look how, look at us. But when something like this happens, it's, we
right.
got a policy for that, and it hasn't been updated in 20 years.
Right. Well, and we maybe cut and pasted it
And
when we
also,
were a
yeah, we don't even know
startup
where it came from.
full of young people. Yeah,
Right,
and we didn't even think somebody would die.
right, exactly. One more lightning round. I mean, I'll go the to tail off of yours. The financial impact of the turnover that we mentioned,
Yes.
51%. Now you got to hire and train.
Well, and just to put
Yeah,
numbers to that, I
go ahead.
mean, you've
Please.
seen them. I have.
Yeah.
Depending on what level of your impact. I mean, it's anywhere from 50 to 200% of your
Right.
annual
Oh,
salary is the
yeah.
actual cost
So think about
to
that.
replace someone. And, I hope that people are still listening to this interview many years later. We're at a
They will.
moment where retention is not the same sort of hot button topic that it was in 2021. There are ebbs and flows always based on meta level, market
Force.
forces.
Right.
And we ride those waves and troughs. But the reality is, you want to be enduringly competitive. You want to get the right people, and you want to keep them. And that means that you're not riding those ups and downs. You're not being like a crappy culture because you can get away with it, because right now
Right.
people can't afford to leave. I mean, who I work with, and I know it's who you work with, are leading edge employers who are best in class, and they are committed to remaining there. And they do it through all kinds of ways of tweaking sales delivery processes and, their mechanized backend. And they also do it by consistently improving their culture. And this is a really, really important offering that does just that in both of the spheres of what we do.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, perfect. We've talked about all the negatives. Now let's transition into what you've built Empathy at Work around.
I have a couple of different areas where my business plays. First, I speak at conferences. That is a great move for any organizer or person who really wants to bring, and all kinds of conferences, from news organizations to tech applications, to really be able to say, we're not just selling widgets or consulting services. We really want to make sure that our culture is a culture worth accelerating. That has been one of my favorite lines that I encountered recently about AI. Like, AI is an accelerator. It's an accelerator of data processing. It's an accelerator of processes. It's an accelerator of culture. It is not a creator. Is your culture something that is worth accelerating? A lot of the work that I do is interior to companies. They bring me in, whether that is for an all-team meeting, a lot with middle managers who are oftentimes on the front line of dealing with disruption, and certainly in executive team sessions to make sure that they can champion a movement. And what we really focus on is, again, these skills-based competencies. I want everyone to come out with something they can do later that day to move the needle in being able to be more aware and caring at their organization. It's not just conceptual, very actionable. And so I will come in and just do what is my signature training on the empathy avatars and the why, economic impact and how it translates to the customer. A lot of what I also do is bundled trainings where we don't just talk about that. We also talk about change fatigue and compassion fatigue, because it's hard to talk about consistently caring for other people if you're not at a stable place. That is its own path to fizzling out. I talk about how your story can be leveraged as strategy to get you to your next opportunity, developing fortitude. And what we really realized in the last year or so was, it's so great, the dynamism of an in-person session. There are some organizations that just because of the rhythms of their workflow or because they are across multiple states or even nations. They can't get everybody in one room at one time. So we have a really beautifully produced, we've all seen the really crappy online trainings, but a really beautifully produced, self-paced online training with downloadable templates and just great little tidbits of learning, about an hour and a half of total content.
I've seen the videos and the production value, and not to mention the education value, A+.
Yeah, and we are running a special promotional rate right now, so it's probably worth checking out. The final thing that I do, and your team has come to it, they ask great questions. You're so wonderfully both contributing and participatory, but we do half-day and all-day trainings where we're just able to have people come in. Maybe they don't have the budget or the buy-in yet to do an in-company session, and that's just a great aggregate as well. One final thing, I just did a first with oh, there it is. I just did a first.
Loved it.
We're going to a number of states on Humans, the Future of Work, where I've collaborated with some other great trainers, Stu Darling and Chris Rollins, and we're talking about, in an age where everyone's leaning towards AI solutions, which is great, how one of our most lasting and enduring advantages that we can really cultivate is the people at our core. So we're excited to take that to a location near you in 2026.
Yes, I love that. I love it. And again, this was amazing, very helpful, engaging, and you've made, I don't want to say light of a tough conversation. I don't know if anyone can do that, but it is a way that you do it in a way that is consumable and light-hearted-ish, the best you can do it, but it's quite moving and definitely, like you said, you're walking away with actual things to incorporate into your life.
Thank you. I receive that because, I mean, I get it. You get it too. Because we're going to have a day of talking about disruption and death. And I always love it in the video assets or the photos that come out of watching people laughing at our kind of shared foibles of how we mess things up and how we can be better. And the thing that I love most in any session I do is those moments where I get to see, as a presenter, these aha moments where people are like, that would be better. I'm going to do that. It makes me think of a session that I did with all of the accountants for the Department of Defense, which is exactly the kind of group that you imagine as I say that. And I did an all-day session, and they were the most smartly dressed, conservative suit. There's this accountant that comes up to me halfway through the day, and he sticks out his hand and he says, "I just want to thank you for not making this boring and stupid." And I was like, high praise from you, sir. I'm sure it is, and I receive it as such.
Thank you so much. You didn't know you needed that compliment, but you got it.
It's like a bumper sticker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Plenty of great solutions, and I can attest. I've seen them, been through them. With those, let's start with kind of a hierarchy, but I want to start with managers.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, what does a great manager's response look like when they receive bad news, when they receive news of a disruptive life event from an employee? What does that look like, generally speaking?
Yeah. Let me give a little bit of pretext to it. You earn the right to be able to be let into somebody's disruptive life event. Now, sometimes they have to tell you because they have to get time off. You don't want to primarily be like a have to tell person. Ideally, you've been doing the work where they know that you care, not just about their deliverables, but about them as people. And you've been doing that in the more stable situations. You've been having meaningful check-ins. I love the stoplight check-in where you rate your energy, red, yellow, green. People have been paying attention. As a manager, you can never demand that someone be vulnerable with you at work. It's something that's earned,
Yeah.
and there are people for all types of reasons. Maybe it is their racial identity or their gender, or they have been wounded in past workplaces. They will be less likely sometimes to want to share. You can't demand it, but you can create the space where somebody could share. So
Mhm.
that moment where they are sharing something hard that's going on, don't say, take all the time you need. It
What?
sounds so great. It's a lie. It's not something you can deliver on. We all know it's a lie. And the person on the other side knows that they don't have all the time that they need. They have whatever amount of time is in your mind, and they don't know
Mhm.
what it is. So proposing the next time for a check-in. Don't check your phone. Don't check your email for the next 48 hours. We will circle back then. That is an amount of time where they can actually inhabit that rest. Another phrase that like initially sounds good, but I just encourage people to skill up beyond that is just, well, let me know what I can do to help, because the person who's going through something hard
Right.
doesn't have time to do the internal inquiry. We both know, I think, Megan Jarvis in town.
Yep.
She is a fantastic HR leader. She talks about when someone's going through something hard, I go through their calendar, and any meeting that can be kicked, later on down the line, or an email, I give them back the gift of their time.
Huge.
Offering something specific instead of let me know what I
Yeah.
can do to help. Hey, I know that you are wrapping up that big report. Would it be okay with you if I just took, the final 5 yards on it and got it,
Mhm.
into the end zone? Or I know you're going back and forth to the hospital. I'm going to give you a gas gift card. Offer something specific.
Yeah.
The other thing, so there are a lot of these. I'll just give you two more.
Please. Yeah. Go ahead.
Checking in with them
Yeah.
about whether or not you can share with the rest of the team. Hey, is this something that it would be helpful for the rest of the team to know or not? Always check in. Before, I have heard horror stories where the manager thinks, well, of course it's helpful. I'll let everyone know that, their parent died, and it feels like such a trespass
Right.
to the person who's going through something.
Right.
And then a final note is just planning for empathy in your calendar. So, Keegan, you're my employee. Let's say that your really beloved dog dies, and we're talking about that. And maybe you're going to take the day off. I'm going to drop a note in my calendar for a week later and a month later where I'm going to check in with you on how you're doing. Because I might have great intentions. I actually give this suggestion because I need it and use it all the time. I have really good intentions. I don't want to drop the ball. Guaranteed, 85% of the time, I'm going to forget if I do not write it down.
Yep.
So it keeps me honest. A week later, Keegan, how are you feeling? I know that you probably don't have your companion for your morning walks. Just want to see how you're doing. This is also great with clients. Like, send them your
Yeah.
swag. That's impactful. Do all the things. But you know what is really meaningful too? When you remember that this is their first Thanksgiving where their mom has died, that's the final note. I know I said two. Make notes around major holidays to just check in with people. I keep a running note in my calendar just to reach out, something
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. I love that. And this isn't just, um, about managers reaching out to employees. This goes for anyone, right? And I like that. I
Right.
love that the customer reach out. Like
Yeah.
these are people that are going through things anything that they receive, be it an email, a text,
Mm.
whatever, they're certainly probably not expecting it. And
Right.
how good would that feel? Does that
Yeah.
feel to get
Your
something like that? You're
neighbor,
being thought of. Yeah.
the person you play pickleball with.
Yeah.
You want to be that person, not just at work, but in life.
Yep. Yes. Nice.
Yeah.
So that was a few for managers, and then
Hmm.
I'd like to touch on executive leadership team as well.
Yeah. Well, similarly, because executives do have people that are underneath them. So pay attention to the
Right.
people in the
Yeah.
company that you hear about. You don't want to just primarily exist in an ivory tower. In fact, I mean, just because of the power dynamic, you have an outsized impact. Best if you are doing it, but even like if you're like, I can't keep track, it's a big company, have your secretary do it, sign the note,
Somebody.
build it in. You are not above showing care to your people,
Yep.
and your care has an outsized effect. Something that I invite executives to do, because oftentimes they are later on in their careers, is to think about a time that they needed support at work. Maybe that was
They
earlier
themselves.
on, they themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe they have had a parent die. Like, reflect on that more vulnerable stage. It usually happened when you weren't in charge, when you were needing to talk to HR, when you were needing to get time off. Remember that feeling. The people in your organization are feeling that all the time. And then buy a product like Bereave. Hire someone like me to come in and skill up your people. And you do that with your own sort of vulnerability that you lead with. You know what? We are making an investment. We want to comprehensively be more skilled in how we support each other and how we support our clients as we go through disruptive life events. And this is personal for me. I remember when I was in my 30s at my first company, and I was having to bury my mom. And I just remember the feeling of it all being a lot. It matters to me that we're doing this. So I invite all of you to participate. It's now available. Like that, I have watched well-intentioned middle managers have so much more of a compressed impact because the executive team is unaware of what they're doing. There is no buy-in. There's no signaling.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we are about. And when you do that, it's to your benefit. These are the sorts of cultures people want to be a part of.
Mhm.
You get to lead in that. And the glow of what that says about you, what it says about the company is so, so powerful. So don't miss that opportunity as an executive.
Totally. We're very, so that's so interesting. I'd like to touch on that a little bit more. Just the idea of being open and someone at the top being open about what they're going through or what they've gone through, similar to your example that you just mentioned, to let everyone know that this is okay to talk about. This is something that, like you said, we care about, I care about. This is what we're doing because of, not because of this, because of what I've been through. And that just opens up, any conversation that typically should happen now, because it's a workplace, a culture of comfort, trust, all coming from the top because they made it okay. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it creates permission
Mhm.
and it creates
Permission is the
space.
word I was looking for.
Yeah. I just did an event this last Tuesday, and there was a portion of the time where we were talking about meaningful check-ins and how you support people through disruption. And there were a number of individual contributors. They were not there with their entire company. They were not there with their entire team, but they were leaders of teams. And I said something like this: okay, like any, one-day learning session, it's so great in the room, and then you go back to like all the demands and the culture of your workplace, and it's really hard to know how to translate that.
Yeah.
So this one tool that I mentioned earlier, the stoplight check-in, which, I mean, you'd be amazed how many teams are only relating to each other around deliverables. They don't
Will you go
actually
over
know.
the stoplight? I
Yeah.
remember, like, this was one of the takeaways I had of the event that we went to. Super simple, practical,
Yes.
and useful.
Rate the energy that you're bringing to today's session through the lens of a stoplight. Green, feeling great, ready to go.
Mhm.
Yellow, you've got some stuff humming in the background that's hard. Or red, you've shown up and it's difficult.
Yep.
This helps you because it gets you better information. We oftentimes backfill. If somebody's more quiet, or maybe they're sitting back, we're like, are they unprepared?
Yeah.
Do they hate me? Sometimes it has nothing to do with you. So it gets you better information from the start. Maybe you don't call out a ton of interaction from the red or yellow, you let them ease into it. Cues up meaningful follow-up is the second one. If they say they're red or yellow, that's an invitation, especially as a leader, to follow up with them after the meeting. Is there anything that would be helpful to talk about? Are there any deliverables we need to shift? And finally, it allows you to talk about some of the more human stuff with a really low barrier to entry. I'm yellow. We're hosting 20 people for Thanksgiving, and I am doing all the cooking. It is a ton. It feels like a part-time job. Then people are like, oh, we can acknowledge that. We can talk about these things. So getting back to how you talk about these things, I said to the people, so we talked about the stoplight check-in, who are Tuesday in the room. I said, what you do is you go back to your team and say something like, hey, I learned this really interesting new tool that I think would help our team. It just helps you level set and get a sense of people and where they are in the room. Stoplight check-in, let's try it. Or, hey, I was at this one-day training and it was so interesting. We were really talking about how we show up for people in hard times. I realized that there was a character that they just stepped in with solutions all the time, kind of a fix-it. I realize I sometimes do that. I can step in really quickly with solutions. Anybody else feel like that's something you do? Like, you can open the space of conversation with your own learning and develop that momentum at work. For people who would show up to bereave things, whether that's online or in a platform, I am really thinking about how we support people in death and hard times that come. I don't really think that we have a good process for that. We haven't looked at that in a while. What do you think? How are we equipped? I know we don't have anyone who's dealing with it right now, but it's probably better to think about it on the front end, and you get that conversation going as iterative and invitation.
Exactly. And just such an important part of this. Do you have anything else for that executive part of the company?
It's worth investing in. I mean, there are
Let's
so
talk
many
about it. I
ways.
think, let's get into that.
It's an investment worth doing, and I don't just say that cheaply because both Keegan and I are in the business of selling our services. I love when I get to do just executive roundtables only with the executive team, because it is oftentimes a particularly lonely space. Because in reality, you shouldn't be dumping your learning journey or your insecurities or the things that you're wrestling with on the people underneath you. There is an imperative of leadership that is there. But when I talk about my MBA program didn't train people to be able to do this. It was not that, in the decades previous, they were knocking it out of the park and doing it really well. And these leaders that don't know how to show up in these moments, they've either insulated themselves so they feel like they don't have to, or it's been an area where they feel insecure and out of their depth and just want to push to the side. And so many aspects of executive level growth, the podcast you listen to, the cohorts you join, it builds a lot of confidence and it translates down to culture in important ways. And even just, there is a big demographic shift coming on. If you feel like your company is not dealing with it yet, well, you've had a lot of privilege in not doing so, but you will be, and be ahead of the learning curve on this. And, compared to all the things you can invest in, we're really quite reasonable for the value-based delivery that we both give in our services.
That is exactly right. And everyone is constantly ROI. What's the ROI? What's the ROI? For a second, we get that. For a second, flip it. What is the cost of inaction?
Yeah.
What's, we've laid out a few statistics of turnover, replacement, not to mention lost trust, all of this just coming from one experience that is already bad.
Yeah.
Right? What a time to pull somebody close, bring them in, support them, instead of turning a blind eye and kind of just letting it ride out.
And I know that you have resources like this on your platform, but I'll send you, maybe we can post with the show notes. There's just a one-page document that we update pretty regularly with some of just the leading edge research on these topics. Here's a recent one from a 2025 Ernst & Young report. 90% of respondents said that they would work, harder and be more engaged when they have empathetic leadership
90.
at the top. And there's all kinds of data points, whether it's from Harvard Business Review or MetLife Survey, these organizations that major in survey design to be representative of all kinds of organizations, to say this really, really matters.
Yeah. So say that 90% again. What was that stat?
90% of respondents said that they were more engaged at work if they had empathetic leadership at the top.
How about that?
I mean, 9 out of every 10.
We understand why, right?
Yep.
We've listed them all out this whole time. It's what should be what we see as an easy choice.
Right.
Something that, people will hopefully soon understand how this really impacts people and business.
Yeah, and even like as I look at my little visual, what we want to do is we want people not at this like consistent freak out and overwhelm moment like the blue monster, but being able to have something to give and some abundance and being able to fulfill the mission. And you exist in the middle, and what you choose to do and invest in helps move how people exist in that continuum.
Is that why you have that perfectly set up as is? Because that is a wonderful reference.
That's one part of it. Absolutely. My son drew this for me early on in the pandemic. It was like a final art project before schools closed.
Beautiful.
Loved it. Felt like it just was a zeitgeist of the moment. And then his younger sister drew this one, which was lovely. And she was like, "Mom, when are you going to put up my picture?" I was like, "Jemima, I just don't feel like we're there yet in the world." And then when I moved into this nice new office space, I thought, I'm still seeing dynamics of both.
There you go. And look at Mom right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Well, this has been great. Liesel, do you have anything else? Do you have any more statistics or any other points of conversation that we can happily still jump into?
Well, you and I could keep talking for quite some time. I have a helpful phrase. There's a silent Sam or Samantha, which is an empathy avatar, which it's just when you don't know what to do or what to say. And there are a number of people who find themselves in that place. Like my wife of 20 years just left last night. I'm devastated. And you're just on your way to getting your coffee and you're blank in that moment. Maybe you've never gone through anything like this before. With the note, to practice empathy, you don't have to have gone through the same thing. There's a great Brene Brown quote that says, empathy is about identifying with the emotions underneath the experience, not the experience itself. But it's obvious this person, they're feeling, out of their depth. They're feeling lost. You still might not know what to say. You might be able to write, "That's okay. Say, I am not even sure what to say right now. That sounds hard. I appreciate you telling me." Like you want to have something you can offer. And this is the second point. Perfection is the enemy of progress in this stuff. When you start leaning into developing human-centric skills, the more you're paying attention to yourself, the more you will be aware of how you mess up. The best cultures are places where people make repairs and they set intention to do better. So say like you're learning, you're getting better, and you realize somebody shares something hard that they're going through with you, and you pull what I call a cheer up Cheryl. You're like, "Well, you're just so strong. Tomorrow's another day. You're going to make it through it." You just like layer the cliches on top instead of really being present. And you realize that like this happens all the time in my sessions. I watch people's dawning awareness of things they've recently done. And as a facilitator, I say in those moments, it is not too late to make repairs. This is what it sounds like. You know what, Joni, last week you shared something really hard with me, and I realized I didn't do a very good job of listening. I just put a lot of cliches on you. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm working on that. Those are the sorts of organizations that really grow. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Start somewhere.
Yes. And even as an employee going through a disruptive life event, if I were to receive that, what you just mentioned, I'm working on it. As someone going through a life event, like that to me would mean a whole lot more than any of your other avatars that, that
Yeah.
if it's silence, fix it. Just to, I'm not just to show I'm trying. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That means a whole lot, right?
Be improving Irene. You're getting better.
You got
That's right.
Here's all the avatars for whoever's
Yep.
wondering.
There they are. You can freeze that little
Yeah,
screen.
freeze it and then you can get it.
Moving.
Or you
They're
can
they're
go.
also available on my website. There's a quiz, a free quiz to identify which avatar you are. We're also going to be posting little snippets from the course that go through each avatar. So stay tuned. By the time you're watching this, they might already all be up there. You can head over and see them.
There you go. What's the website?
LieselMertes.com.
Sorry, say it again. I talked way over you.
That's okay. www.lieselmertes.com. If you're not sure how to spell that, we'll drop it in the notes.
It's right there. Yeah, we'll get that on the screen. It's also it's on your. It's already on there.
Yeah, right there. My name.com, which makes my children think I'm so cool.
You're a big shot. That is.
I'm
I
a
don't know how
big
you got
shot.
that. You are.
Yeah.
All right, Liesel, this has been really great, and I hope that the people listening, watching, got a little something out of this. And it's another day trying to make this world a better place, Liesel, and you're doing a really good job at it.
I am glad to co-labor with Bereave in important, deeply human work.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.